Okay. I appreciate everyone being here today. Good to see your faces again. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Hopefully everybody received some of the packet and the agendas that I sent out last week. Okay, it is 2:02 p.m. We're going to call this SMAC meeting to order today on April 1st, 2026. We'll start with a roll call first. Go ahead, Ms. Wonder, whenever you're ready.
Mark Dianza,
Present.
Jeremy Haas,
Present.
Adam Hunsaker,
Present.
Nicole McFarland,
Present.
Dr. Nicholas Murray,
Present.
Dr. Carol Scott, Mark Stovak,
Present.
Pamela Sloan,
Here.
Rollins Stallworth, I saw you on there. Neil Romardo, Shaw Fitzsimons,
Present.
and myself, Teal Wonder.
Sorry, T, I didn't have my speaker on. If you can hear me, I'm here. You see my big head?
Okay. Getting text messages on. Okay, public comment this time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that said person please complete a green public comment card and submit it to the committee chair prior to the opening of this item. Members of the public who have submitted public comments by email will have their emails read into the record. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesman of a particular group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Is there any public comment at this time, Ms. Wonder?
I don't have anyone in person, and I received nothing via email.
Okay, I did not receive any emails into my inbox as well as last week. Any other public comment in your email box, Ms. Wonder?
No.
Okay, we'll be moving on. Item 4, approval of the April 1st, 2026 meeting agenda today for possible action. Do we have a motion?
This is
Sure.
Pam. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for today as written, or we can also make it a flexible agenda.
I'll second.
Copy that. Thanks, Ms. Sloan. Second by Mr. Stallworth to approve the April 1st, 26 meeting agenda and make it flexible so we can go in any order we'd like, because I understand some of you have other items or things you need to be working on today. All those in favor on item 4, say aye.
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 All those say nay. Okay, item passes. Item number 5, approval of December 8th, 2025 meeting minutes. I believe you all received a copy of those. They were the minutes from our December 8th meeting. Some of you were not present, could not make it.
I'll motion that the minutes from December 8, 2025 are accurate and to be approved.
Okay,
I will-
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Pam. I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second for approval of the December 8th, 2025 meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion approved. Item number 6. 6 and 7 are kind of tied together, folks, as if you can recall back from our meetings in December. We have Emergency Action Plan Task Force, or EAP, for possible action. I put a possible action on there. It doesn't necessarily have to be approved today. And if you look at item 7, Emergency Action Plan template, the template was just included because that kind of tied into the NFHS and INIA guidelines. And we shared that at our very first meeting. So that is why those items are related, I would say, and close together. But I do want to hear from the members, if they will. I believe we assigned kind of a task force. So if we want to have those individuals go ahead and take the floor is yours.
Sure. Nicole and Dr. Scott and Pam sort of communicated back and forth on email. We did meet in person one time, and this is Mark, by the way, and we were discussing some stuff about emergency action planning, kind of standardizing that across the state. And we have a couple documents that we sort of put together, tried to create a Nevada specific introduction page, which I don't know if you want me to share my screen or just, I don't know if I can share the docs with you guys. What's the best way to get that stuff to you guys?
Do you have,
Ideally, if we had a copy of it, yeah, if you
Okay.
can email it to us.
I
if you could
can,
email
I'll
that
send
to us,
that.
Mark?
I'll send that out to the list with the agenda and all of that stuff. So I will reply all to that and give you guys the info. We kind
And
of
then you share your,
say that one more time.
and then yeah, and then maybe you can share your screen and we can all follow along
Okay.
or whatever.
Cool. Send a request to share. There we go. Screen 3. So starting, one thing we learned, we used some of the KSI stuff as an example. I assume you guys are all seeing this with my comically large cursor in the middle of it. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
We used KSI as kind of a template for a lot of the stuff that we did because they've been kind of the standard for doing the EAP stuff with the high schools and then work with the NFHS. So this was an introduction Dr. Scott put together to just talk to our specific NIAA member schools to let them know sort of what the background of this is and why the EAP is a vital necessary component. And it just sort of gives an info, gives some background stuff and gives some idea of some of the requirements that people will need to take into account in order to get the EAP together and what kind of things and information they need to put together to have a complete plan. So this just sort of gives kind of the background and some specific information that's going to be happening and things that our member schools should be thinking about as they are doing their emergency preparedness with some references down at the bottom here. The actual venue specific EAP, we kind of cut this out so it's kind of easier to digest chunks. That was one of the things that we did. We were like, hey, we want to make sure this is as easy as possible. And we tried to highlight everything in yellow that would need to be filled in. So this is just kind of the start of, hey, this is what your EAP is actually going to look like. What's your name? You would fill in what location and activity. One of the big recommendations that came out was that EAP should be venue and sport specific because you're going to have different locations for these things and you're going to have different personnel available. EAP isn't one size fits all for the entire campus because your football staff is going to be very different than your cross country staff. So identifying the appropriate personnel is important. So we do want venue and team specificity on these things. This describes when to activate the EAP. And then when we actually get down to our EAP, again, we highlighted these things in yellow that need to be filled in because all the other stuff, I should probably have yellow after these kind of parts right there. That was something that we missed there. But this stuff kind of doesn't change. You always check the scene to see what's happening. You always check the patient, see if they're responsive and breathing. And then we identify specific personnel. That's going to vary depending on what team this is done for and depending on what activity this is done for. So all the yellow is the stuff that the individual sites would have to fill in. Other than that, the form pretty much stays the same from site to site. And that way, if one school does it if one school does it appropriately and shares this with all their staff, they should know what every other EAP across the state looks like. So if they're handed a copy of an EAP, they know exactly what they're looking for and what they should be doing. And that's one of the things we would also recommend is, well, not recommend. Ideally, I'd say we should require that there are some kind of rehearsals going on at these sites so that they are going through these steps with their people. So we kind of condense and cut it down to a 3-page doc. The last segment is policies and procedures. This one is going to take a little bit longer. I mean, it's the same information from the EAP, but that information from there kind of gets pulled onto here. And this is policies and procedures refers to how you handle specific situations. This one specifically goes to EAP, but realistically, there should be a policy created for every individual situation that could arise, which that takes a long time. The EAP is something that we need to get done first. The policy and procedure is something that's going to change over time. EAPs are things that we should be reviewing yearly, to be honest, or I wouldn't even say yearly, anytime something changes. Again, we tried to highlight the things that we think should be changed to give people kind of a guide of where they should be going and try to highlight their attention to those specific areas. And one last thing I created, let me just check something over here. I tried to create a checklist and I sent this out to our subgroup way too late. I sent it out to them last night. But this was just kind of a checklist in order of operations of things to do. Number one, read this NIAA SMAC introduction. Read that first page that was geared towards Nevada of why you should be doing this stuff and what this all entails. Then complete your venue specific EAP and just individual steps of what you should be doing to complete that. 3, complete your EAP policies and procedures. And then I added, I don't know if this should be another number, if this is something separate because it's kind of a similar topic, but separate topic, your pre-event medical checklist. What should be happening pre-event with every event. I think we're pretty good about doing this with football because that tends to have medical staff, but every sport has emergencies and it's something that we should address. And we discussed having some kind of involvement. There's officials and coaches at every event that they should be going over these specific topics at each site before every event. I mean, it's just one of those things. If you're going to have an emergency, having that preparation and knowing who is going to be doing what is vital to the way that event overall runs and having a smooth response as opposed to having a chaotic response. So let me get to a point where I can email this to all of you guys and I will send the stuff to you guys in copy. But what questions do you guys have or what other things from the rest of the EAP subgroup do you guys have? Or do you want me to go back to something?
I love the detail, so I think.
Yeah, Mark, can you bring up the screen with the fill-in stuff again? With the yellow stuff that they're actually filling in?
The EAP one or
Yeah.
the venue specific EAP template?
Yeah, the venue specifically.
So from the very top, location and activity, your organization, so your school site name. This formatting on this is a little off. That can be.
That's all good. Yeah. Difficulty. Okay, so you talk about when to activate. That's great.
Correct. When to activate. These are the things that we're looking for. If we see these things, then we're going to go into our EAP. Are we all good in this top section in here? Do you want me? I can make this bigger also. So.
Yeah, I'm already got you on my big screen.
There we go. We'll go. How about
Hold on.
200? There we go.
Yeah.
We'll just go 200 and we'll go a little piece.
You're good.
Piece. So yeah, just so Nevada High School, what location, football field for football team or football track stadium for track team. However you want to, however you're going to fill that in just to keep some consistency. Also add in addresses and what things are going to be in there. As we go down, your organization name, AT on site for blank. If you have an AT on site, you're going to be filling that in. That's important information and that contact information. These things, these are the basic roles that we need to address. Who's going to be the primary provider of medical care? Well, if you have an athletic trainer, ideally that's them. But if they don't happen to be on site at that point in time, every coach should be able to do CPR because every coach in our state is CPR AED certified. So that's something we have to think about. If we don't have an athletic trainer, then yeah, we need to have some kind of a plan of care if somebody falls into one of those emergent categories. Identify who's calling 911. retrieving the emergency equipment. Well, one, you have to know what emergency equipment you have, and two, you have to absolutely know where it is and how to get to it. Do we have keys and access to those kinds of things? So just thinking about things that we want to take into account when we're talking, getting this EAP stuff prepared, and that's where that pre-event medical meeting comes in handy, because you review all those things really briefly. It doesn't take long to do. It's just one of those things that pre-event medical meeting is just a very shortened version of your EAP.
Yeah. So quick question about this. Like, so like calls 911, can they put in like administrator on duty, or are you looking for them to put in the name? Because how's that work when you have administrators that are rotating or whatever, per game?
I would probably, on that one, if I was gonna have it be the administrator on duty, I would probably write administrator on duty. In
Yeah.
that medical meeting, you could identify who that specific person is.
Right. So this could be primary provider of medical care, athletic trainer, calls 911, athletic administrator on duty or whatever, administrator on duty, retrieves the medical equipment, administrator on duty. So I'm just worried if, so
Honestly,
we're just clarifying like roles of the people that are going to be
correct.
there and not specifically names.
Correct. And honestly, I
Okay.
would put athletic trainer and coaches, because if the AT is not present,
Sure. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
sure.
would say, hey,
Yes.
they're not present, this job isn't happening. Somebody needs to be filling all these roles.
Yeah, sure.
So figuring out who on your staff can fill these roles potentially, that's an important aspect and component of that.
Yeah, it's just making people think about what they don't think about.
Absolutely. Yeah, the formatting got funky over here. Sorry about that.
And at larger schools, Jeremy, to piggyback on what you said, at larger schools, we've seen campus security monitors, open up gates. In the smaller
Correct.
areas, it could be a student that go gets the AD machine. It's, and like Mark said, different trainings and run-throughs, but this would be important. I do love it. I like how it's comprehensive. I like how it's kind of a plug and play, not really reinventing the wheel with these EAPs, with where schools and athletic administrators and whatnot can just plug into the yellow areas like you mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
for
that's,
sure.
that
Go
was
on.
one thing we discussed, and one thing we said, hey, we need to make this, I don't want to say as easy as possible is the correct word. We want to make this as digestible as possible for the coaches to not, because when you hear, hey, you have to do a venue specific EAP for 27 sports or however many you have, you're gonna be like, are you freaking kidding me? Hey, I could see that response happening, but if it's like, hey, this is a specific information, like your school name isn't going to change across all of those EAP, like that's going to stay the same. The address may or may not vary depending on where that site is and all of that. So that stuff might be the same, but the people is going to vary between from sport to sport and site to site. The entrances is going to vary from site to site.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. I think
Well,
though,
this,
in the I'm sorry if I cut someone off.
no. The other thing that would happen is that this sheet on a given day at a certain school will be different from one field to the other. There could be a volleyball game going on in the gym and the soccer match going on the football field, and simultaneously, and this sheet's going to vary from that one site to the other as well.
Well, it's going to be a different sheet. If you're at
Yeah,
volleyball, this is your EAP in the volleyball area. If you're
yeah,
at soccer field, this is your EAP for the soccer.
exactly.
Yeah. I also think that the messaging when we send this out to the schools needs to be, while this is important to fill out, that medical meeting before the event, before each event is even going to make more of an impact, because, you can put on here, okay, maybe we're identifying the police officer to be the one who calls 911, right? But maybe he's not on campus that day, or, you designate someone else in the yellow areas, and now that person's not there. The medical meeting before every event that should be happening, and not just football, all the different events, that's where you really find out who's there and you can make the decisions of who's doing what.
And
So I
honestly,
really like the idea of thinking about these are the things that should be in the medical minute. I liked that on that other page. I thought that was great. So I think just the messaging is going to be important with this, that not filling this out and just forgetting about it. You actually have to be following up on this stuff.
And honestly, I really think the officials association, the coaches association need to be behind the medical meeting, because there is
Agreed.
always an official and there's always a coach at every game.
Agreed. And there's not always an athletic trainer.
There's not always an athletic trainer. Like you said, if you have soccer and volleyball, they're going to have to make a choice between one of those places. So in my absolute ideal pipe dream world, the home head coach would have kind of a card made up and bring that to a meeting with the official and the visiting coach every game. if the athletic trainer is there and present, have that person there at that game too. But that it's that official and coach. They don't start a game without those two folks. So in my absolute pipe dream world, there'd be an athletic trainer at every location at every site. That's like beyond the pipe. But yeah, that's sort of where I would love to see a lot of support from our state is from those two organizations. And I'm not sure who the person to talk to with that stuff is, but I think that's a conversation that should be had somewhere.
Well,
I
I
think
think one of the ways we can address that and have that taking place is I, I think we should be in communications a little bit with the officials association because they're the ones that bring the two coaches together before the game. They come out and watch us stretch at the football games and they come out and they're checking my kids' football shoes and making sure they have the right stuff on. But I think that getting them on board to say, hey, look, when we get together, we need the trainers here or somebody representing that group from the school or something to be in that entry communications at the start of the game. So the white hat at the football game knows who he's going to go to when that emergency takes place.
And this is something working in some of the other events that I work, we do a pre-event medical meeting before every NFL game. And we talk about this, we introduce everybody first. We determine how we're going to communicate. Hey, if there's an all call, it's X over the head or whatever. That sign happens to be in our stadium. It's always an X over the head. It's pretty consistent pretty much everywhere. But these are topics that should happen. And this doesn't take long to do. It's
No.
a 2 to 3 minute conversation to do this stuff. And if we have that stuff prepared beforehand, it's just boom, 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 boom. And if you notice G, insert a QR for your site EAP. Your site can hand that EAP off on a card to a visiting coach. So visiting coach could have somebody on their staff that's like, hey, have this ready for us just in case we need it. And one other thing completely aside from this that I don't know if it's required in Nevada. I've never seen it personally. We used to have emergency cards for every player at colleges, stuff that I've worked at in the past. I don't know how many high schools travel with that stuff, but I mean, it's one of those things. If you activate an EAP at a visiting site, it's really easy to hand an EMS a card with student, athlete, name, date of birth, student ID, insurance info. And just having that stuff on cards. I mean, that's a complete aside from this project. It was something that popped in my head as I'm sitting here thinking about this stuff and thinking about emergencies and what can happen and their emergency contacts and all of that, and just having that stuff out and ready. But it's all about preparation when it comes to emergencies.
Yeah, usually that information is carried by a coach on staff. They'll print out that mark. They'll have that for all their player or their student athletes. I do like that though, but like Stallworth said, most officials are going to ask, are your players properly equipped? And then this starts that conversation as well. So that is a good point as well. Any other discussion on this item at this point? Any questions from Mark or anyone? We do appreciate you, Mark, and your team and whoever else I've contributed to this.
Well
yeah, that's
done.
great. Yeah, Mark, you got BB there, just FYI, if you want to change that first one to an A. And then do you I might be overthinking it, but in that first one, do you want to identify other events that may be happening on campus? You know what I mean? So if we do usually when I go up to an official, I'll tell them, hey, I've also got volleyball going up in the gym. So if I'm not here, I'm at volleyball. This would be the person you would contact at second,
No, thank you. And I have no idea why this is starting.
Well, you don't have to fix it right now.
One of those days.
Just making you aware of it.
No,
Just
appreciate that.
thing.
Thank you. I did not notice the BB and then how I got BCD and all of that. I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah. No, I think this is good. I mean, I'm going to steal this and make our people start doing this now with these questions, having it outlined specifically what you're supposed to be discussing. Because I think most of our athletic trainers are doing it, but I don't think they're having the same conversations. I like having a checklist.
Should say pediatric trauma there because that's a whole nother story, like what hospital they might go to. And some of this stuff, hey, you might not know this right off the bat when you're creating your AP. You may have to call out and ask people, hey, where would you call your local EMS? Where would you transport somebody if they had a head or neck injury? Where would you transport someone with a cardiac emergency? That might just simply be a question you have to ask. In Vegas, we have it weird where we have Jeremy, is it 5 different EMS folks that could show up at a given time?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Somewhere in there, whereas in the rurals, you got one ambulance, and that's how it's rolling. So they're going to have a very specific protocol. And with EAP, as always, we should always say, hey, EMS, this is the plan of response we have. Does this jive with your plan? And make sure everything's kind of cohesive and have that two-way communication. In the rurals, it's tougher because of different resources available, but at least you have some consistency. As we're in the urbans in Las Vegas and Reno, you're going to get some variety in what crew shows up and how things happen. So just having that quick call and having that conversation is really important in the overall emergency response.
Okay. Any more further discussion on this? Okay, Mark, you can stop sharing your screen when you get a chance.
Perfect.
We will go. Moving on with the agenda. So that was, so there was a template there that we had talked about, but that was your EAP that the task force kind of worked on. Do we want to approve that today, folks? Do we want do we want Mark to get that out to everybody to look at? I mean, it says for possible action, doesn't have to happen, but is everyone pleased with that?
My recommendation would be that I think it looks great, but I think it would be doing a disservice if we all didn't get to review it on our own first. So maybe we can schedule something for, I don't know, a quick turnaround that we could all vote on it, like in a week or whatever, the quickest way we could do it.
Okay. And Mark will email that out to us anyway, so he'll do that today.
That's just my opinion. If everybody else wants to
everyone, anybody else have anything different than that? No? Okay. All right, so we will not take any action on that today. Item number 7, which is the template, it just kind of married the NFHS standards with the NIA standards. And as I was looking through there when Mark was sharing his screens, most of those were included, as he had mentioned earlier in his presentation. So without further ado, we'll move on to item number 8. This was brought up, I think last spring. I wasn't working for the NIAA yet. Somebody brought this up, that this was an issue of youth adult pads and high school recommendations. So I did kind of a deep dive into that, and I reached out to our NFHS partners and some other state associations. And if you look at this, and it is April Fool's Day, and so I kind of wanted you guys to get a laugh on this as well. Yeah, basically, legal pads, and we're just talking high school football only. Okay, so we're not looking at lacrosse or volleyball knee pads or anything. But obviously, they got to be professionally manufactured. You can't home make these things. They got to be unaltered. Some of you that have officiated before, if you've been at games where the kids are cutting the knee pads now, or they're cutting them into a round circle just to go over the patella, they should be worn as attended. Obviously, they provide full required coverage, and the uniform should fully cover the pads. Gone are the 80s where the football players had pads sticking out. Obviously, pads too small to cover required areas are illegal. Knee pads not covering the knee are legal. Pants worn above the knee, these are all illegal in high school. The NFHS doesn't regulate a youth versus adult label. So you can get a uniform that says youth on it or an adult, but they only mandate, obviously, the coverage, fit, and the safety. And so we're seeing a lot of this in high schools across the state. I talked to the Utah High School Activities Association as well as the AIA down in Arizona, and they're dealing with the same things, that high school athletes are getting youth-size shoulder pads. They're going to Dick's Sporting Goods and they're buying these small pads or these lower profile thigh and knee pads, and just being very minimal because they want to be faster. So the motivations is they feel lighter, the sleeker look, and they're mimicking, the college and NFL aesthetics. And most of you may know that the NFL has a dress code, but you can look at some NFL players and some of their pads would probably not fit a high school person because they want to be sleeker and faster. And I included this picture of this Oklahoma kicker. This went viral last year. I don't know if anybody saw this, but in this picture here, you can clearly see his knees aren't covered. You can clearly see there's no thighs. And on the second picture, I don't even think he has hip pads or I mean, this went viral, but for this group alone, you were probably shocked to see that this is actually happening at the NCAA level. Again, NCAA rules are different from NFHS, high school rules, but I think our high school athletes are seeing this at this level and they're trying to mimic that. So, are there
Yeah.
any questions, discussions? Has anyone seen any of these things as an athletic administrator, trainer, any of these things in the area you've been at? And one of the discussions referees will say, like Stallworth brought up, Mr. Stallworth, are all your players properly equipped? They ask this question in basketball, in baseball, in football, and the coaches are supposed to say, yes, they're properly equipped. And the SNOA down here in Southern Nevada has been very good at looking into these football knee pads. And I've seen it when I was an athletic administrator at high schools where they will send off a kid not wearing the proper knee pads, and what do the coaches say? They say, well, we didn't bring any extra knee pads. And, usually coaches would bring a whole bag with an extra helmet, extra stuff. And so now they're pulling knee pads out of a freshman that can't play or isn't going to play, and they're shoving knee pads in. And so this is more of just a coaching education thing from my perspective. But I just wanted you guys to kind of be aware that it is happening at the high school level. And any more discussion on that? Or anybody have any comments, questions, concerns?
Hey, Sean, this is Pam.
Yeah, hi Pam.
Hi. Just to let you know what we do within CCSD is because we do have families, parents, for whatever reason, they want to purchase their own helmet and their own shoulder pad. We actually allow that. So
Mhm.
if we're going to put an end to that, we need some language because we worked with our legal department and we have a waiver that the parent has to sign off. So, um, is it looking like we shouldn't be doing that?
Well, I believe that, Ms. Sloan, great question. If a lot of kids and families want to have their own helmet and pads that they carry with them all through high school, as long as if it goes back to it's professionally manufactured, it's unaltered in any way, as the helmet is getting me thinking it has the warning label on it by a reputable manufacturer, as long as those things are still in place and they're being used properly, that's fine. I did hear a story a couple of weeks ago that some coach years ago had sent a player off and they took off the helmet because it just didn't look right. And it was an actual youth like plastic helmet that used to get from the Sears catalog,
Oh
when we
my.
were kids. And so that obviously the referees are they're gonna have associations are gonna have they have proper training in what's legal and what's not. But at this time, Ms. Sloan, I don't think they're as long as your coaches are versed on this is proper equipment and you have somebody at the sites at the specific site of that school that knows that, I don't think you'll have to change that policy.
Yeah, but I like to add too
Yeah,
is that Jeremy and his team are amazing, and we're very fortunate to have traders at every school that they do weekly helmet and shoulder pad checks.
yeah,
So
that's another thing I was going to add for ATs
yeah,
do that. Jeremy, your hand was up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, what's the point of bringing this up? What's the goal of this? Are you looking to hopefully make some kind of recommendations that, one way or another, like Pam brought up, buying their own, but are we looking to make some kind of recommendations that they have to have certain rules? Or I guess I'm
No,
just unclear on
yeah,
what
I
we're
think it was just brought up, Jeremy. This was emailed to me by an athletic administrator, and it was brought up based on just to make us aware of it, I guess. I just want everyone to be on the same
okay.
page that high school athletes can't be using
Yeah.
altered gear, if you will. So I don't think we're gonna we'll make policy on it. Just we wanted to make everybody aware of it.
Yeah, I do know that there was some talk, if I remember, right after the national championship game, that college changed some of their rules. If I remember, they just changed it because of, I believe, this viral photo that you have up here. That now it has to be below the knee, and they're going to start enforcing it and stuff. So I was just wondering because maybe we just need to kind of, I don't know if this is something we should be on the forefront of regulating. We have our rules that we should be
Yeah,
following for sure.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think that everyone's well versed in it from ATs to athletic directors and coaches. And so I just kind of wanted to put it on there to make everyone kind of aware of it.
yeah,
Mark, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and Tia just put it in the chat. It was brought up in the last meeting. It was actually, I brought it up because an athletic trainer in town brought it up to me. They said, "Hey, I have these kids that come in with child pads. And when I see legal professionally manufactured, I mean, they're professionally manufactured, but child pads have different standards compared to adult size pads. And I think that's why they brought it up. And
Yeah.
they were asking me if there was any clarification from us. So that's why I brought it up in the last meeting to see if we could look into it. So I appreciate you doing the homework and looking into this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
then that way you can-
honestly, I
you can
thought there
relay that
was a
message.
rule against youth versus adult. I thought they had to be an adult. So that's good to know that there isn't a rule.
Exactly. Just the coverage, fit, and safety, which I think this is kind of the main point that obviously if you're rolling in with a youth set of pads, I think that's the key term there. Only coverage, fit, and safety. So they're not going to fit a high school senior that's got the shoulders of, so
Well,
yeah, like I said, I wanted to bring that up and thank you, Mark, for reminding me on that because I knew it was somebody that it wasn't of the committee, but somebody had asked a committee member, "Hey, let's look into this." So I put it on the next agenda, and I thank Miss Wonder for going through the minutes on that, and that's why it's on our agenda. So, any other further comments, questions, concerns on this? Like I said, I wanted to. This is just to me. This just doesn't look right. Just doesn't look like a football player.
so where are we on this? Are we allowing youth pads on our high school athletes? Like that's the question.
So I would
So
say
I
if
think
they're,
I have I don't know where the raise hand button is. This is Adam, by the
go ahead,
way. I think when I read the NFHS rule, what I'm saying is uh, we're talking about 14-year-olds to 18-year-olds, right? And all the adolescent growth and development that comes with that. I know I have freshman football players that probably are appropriately in a youth size pad because they're tiny. They haven't hit puberty barely at all yet. So I think it's up to the coaches and or us if we're available to make sure their teams are in the right pads, whether it's school issued, whether the individual buys the pad personally, somebody from the school, coach, athletic trainer, athletic administrator, some equipment manager, somebody from the school should be ensuring that whatever pad is being worn fits that particular player appropriately. Whether it's a 14-year-old freshman that weighs 110 pounds, and yeah, they might be in a youth pad. But I think what we're trying to get at is that senior wide receiver that wants to run a 4.240 that's trying to sneak into the tiniest pads possible. We need to make sure they're in the appropriate pads. And that 110-year-old freshman or 110-pound freshman player probably doesn't fit right in an adult pad, and we get the too big pad problem, which also isn't great. So it's just someone at the school, coaching staff, athletic trainer, administrator, equipment manager, someone needs to make sure each player's in an appropriately fitting pad for that player.
yeah, just wanted to get it on the radar for everyone. Go ahead, Mark. Your hands up.
I actually have a question for Dr. Murray on this. This seems to be kind of up your alley with helmets being one of the main equipment pieces that we'd be worried about. Is there data that says youth helmets don't take shock as well as, I know the whole concussion cause and all that, that's a whole nother topic and everything that goes on there, but is there anything that says a certain age should be using an adult helmet versus a youth helmet that you're aware of, since that's kind of your realm?
Not that I'm aware of. It's mostly coming down to fit and style of the helmet. So newer helmets that are NOXI certified will have better regulations and better protection per se from head impacts, but they don't reduce contact forces and anything about injury risk. So it's more about the fit. If the fit works, then it's probably most appropriate in the helmet that they should be using.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, we'll move on then. Item number 9, mental health for discussion only. Again, this was on our agenda from last time. I don't know if we brought this up a little bit. I kind of put together a list of some mental health resources. And for those of you that are in Reno and for those of you in Las Vegas, some of these I looked into. If you'll notice, some of these, if you look down on, I believe it was, oh yes, best options for rural Nevadas, because I think that the mental health, obviously in the rural counties and rural schools is, they don't have really a lot of local psychologists, let alone sports psychologists. But I was happy to learn that These items down here on the very bottom for rural counties, there's still a lot of telehealth-based therapies out there. Obviously, their first line of defense is their school-based counselors, their athletic directors. It takes a special person in a rural community to be an athletic director, be that psychologist, be that parent figure. Not that they're not that way in the in the big schools as well, but many rural schools partner with county mental health providers for referrals to the larger cities like Las Vegas, Reno, or even out of state to our neighboring uh, clinics and outpatient therapy things. Is this accurate? I guess I've got to talk to the Reno people first, and what my goal with this is, folks, is to maybe just generate a list. And if this is not very accurate, maybe we generate an accurate list and we can get this out to schools as well. This was based on some research that I did. Has anyone heard of or worked at Renown Health and their outpatient program? There's behavioral health care hospital. I think that's still going, the teen inpatient. And these are just some of the other things. So as you look through those lists, if you haven't seen this, if you didn't look through it last week or want to go through and look through some of them, I know that there's more than this, obviously, in Reno and Nevada, but these were the ones that kind of popped up that were more adolescent specific, I should say, or for our high school athletes. And if you see like on number 5, I know there's a lot of local teen therapists and private practices out there, right? I'm not going to list them. I'm not going to be your yellow pages and list all 100 therapists in Reno. But is there anybody on the committee that's had any dealings with any of these programs? Or if there's one on that's not on here that you know of?
Yeah, the Trevor Project I know is a big one.
Okay.
And
You know, I'm really concerned a little bit about this section with regards to that. I know as a coach and a teacher, I'm really cautious about giving information out like this to parents, almost to the point where, you know, I don't want to advocate for this particular one over another one and those kind of things. Is this information is not for coaches, is it? I mean, it's we don't want our coaches having this information and saying, "Hey, kid, you need to go here, here, and here."
No,
What
no,
what's the
Rollins, I
significance?
think we just wanted to, it was on the agenda for last time as far as just mental health resources, just to get these to the proper principals, athletic administrators, if they know, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be an athlete at your school, but I know a lot of the schools already have these in place, but I know some of the rural Americas, rural schools don't have them in place. And I think that we do a great job anyway. Certainly, we would not hand this list to, on a parent night and say, hey, choose one of these. But I just kind of wanted to let the committee know that these things are out there. And if this is something I can, give to the athletic administrators at our yearly meeting or something, just to, I mean, most people know some of these resources and even like the Trevor Project that I've heard of that I did not put on here, but yeah. So that's what it is called, Stallings. I wouldn't, Rollins, I wouldn't, obviously share any information about the child or anything with any of these folks.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that, but I just don't want to scare all of our coaches. You know, our coaches might be looking at this and seeing this, and this will scare the snot out of them seeing something like this. And they're saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, look, I'm trying to do X's and O's, and we got all this stuff here to worry about." Where, you know, I think it's important for us to direct them and teach them to direct them to that kid to the counselor, their teachers, and maybe even make a phone call to the parent with some issues that you might be having. But I'm just really fearful of
yeah,
this, and this would really scare the snot out of those coaches.
true.
Yeah,
And it was just discussion only. And it's also, we have such a high turnover of principals, athletic administrators, and athletic directors that, there's a changing of the guard where a lot of the old guard, if you will, is retired and kind of doesn't know a lot of these things anyway. Jeremy, go ahead. You got your hand up.
yeah, I think the
Okay.
schools have this information already. The schools, but it's the student counselors and like the school nurse.
Yes.
Those are the people who have it. So I think the problem or what we're perceiving as a problem is the disconnect between the school side and the athletic sides, and maybe our athletes
Uh-huh.
aren't taking advantage of this. So, while I do agree with what Mark said in the chat that always giving out resources is a great idea, I do see what Stolliver is talking about making recommendations to ones that we don't have experience with. So, I guess my suggestion would be, since Dr. Scott is the one who actually brought this up to be discussed, maybe we should just wait for her to be back, because maybe she had a purpose for wanting to bring this up, or maybe she had a plan.
Okay, yeah, we can table that
Thanks.
and just like have a plan. And I like your idea, Jeremy, of just, these are the ones that we're aware of and just and have information on. So I like that. Any other further discussion on this matter? Okay, we'll head to item number 10, concussion protocol tracking. Again, for discussion only. I did not include anything in the packet on concussion protocol tracking. I think we talked and discussed about this, looking back at your minutes from last year,
Survey.
as well as December. It's concussion protocol tracking it's kind of all over the place. As a former athletic administrator at two different high schools, there was some people were using different companies. Impact was one of them, and other districts are using the other ones. And I'd like to hear from either Stallworth or Pam on, do you guys as districts in Washoe or Clark County recommend, how do you guys track concussions, or is that all on your ATs that do that? Like, how do you guys, and maybe you guys can answer that. So this again was just discussion only on concussion protocol tracking. There certainly isn't a database that we can track all that in the whole state. I don't think so anyway, but maybe I'm ignorant.
Uh, for CCSD, Jeremy, you want to pipe in?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, all of our schools here in CCSD are all following the plan. In fact, I know Nye County is for the most part, and I'm sure, Nick can mention many of the ones up there that are following, along with him too. I think, though, there is certainly a subgroup and not the majority that are probably not haven't implemented anything. I know there's some charter schools that aren't really following the rules, and I know that there certainly is rural schools who are not necessarily aware of the concussion policy. So I know we made a recommendation and all this, previously. So I think it's probably time to follow up. I don't know if I know we talked about in the last meeting, maybe doing a survey to see what they've implemented and stuff. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we stand on why this was brought up.
Okay. I think you're right. That was brought up because of, how we're working with that, like you said. Anybody have any other comments on this? No further comments on this?
Well, I guess what we need to discuss is, should we do something like a reminder this summer to the schools, or should we set up some survey? I don't know if we're at survey point yet. I think
I don't think
schools
so.
are trying their best. I think maybe we just make a recommendation like, hey, what have you done? Here's the law. Here is the recommendations from NIA that was sent out, and maybe just get back in their ears a little bit to remind them that this is something that, if they forgot about, they need to be on board.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good idea too. And we have those reminders in place at the NIAA. We'll be reminding, we'll have our spring sports reminder where we do things. And obviously we have our summer institute in July as things start kicking up for fall sports again. And then we have our August meetings. So this could be something that we talk to administrators or athletic administrators and principals about as well. All right. Any other discussion on this? Okay. All right, then we will move on. My screen is on top of itself here. Hold on. Okay, item number 11, future planning. We do have something with Mark that we wanted to talk about with the EAP on a turnaround for that.
Yeah.
Is it just easier? It's hard to get you guys all on a day that works for everybody. There's only 9 of us on the committee, or 9 of you, and then there's me and Miss Wonder. Is there, so for future planning, we'll have Mark email out the EAP as we discussed, and then we'll go from there as far as getting together to kind of approve that. Does that sound like something everyone wants to do?
Yeah, do we have any regulations on how long we have to have in between meetings? Like when I was on the state board, we had to have so long that we had to have it open to the public. What's the quickest turnaround we could get a vote on this?
Well, I would suggest it can't just be in a week because there's regulations where we have to post the agenda, we have to, do
Right.
all that. So I would say at least 3 weeks probably
Okay.
turnaround as far as that's if we get we're gonna get Mark's email and then we gotta find a date for everyone. I will tell you that as April and May, as you know, goes through, we get a lot busier as far as spring sports winding down and athletic trainers busy and you guys are busy in your offices as well. So I'd probably say 3 weeks to a month as far as probably
Okay.
ideal. It's not
And
that
if
we
it's the only agenda item, it should go quick, right?
yeah, if it's a single agenda item, yeah, we could do that. So we could shoot for probably maybe the end of April or the third week, maybe the fourth week of April. I'll send out an email.
Yep.
That works for everybody.
Would
Everybody's
after postseason events be better
after postseason events. Well, that's
or before? I don't know. I'm just
yeah. All of our postseason events will be ending the weekend before Memorial Day, which is May 16th, 17th. Then you have CCST graduations and everything else involved. Mark, go ahead. You got your hand up. Mark Stover.
Can you do an electronic vote or do you have to have a meeting?
I believe we'd have to have a meeting because we don't want to.
Here,
So we
Sean,
don't
if I can
violate
jump,
any open meeting laws.
yeah, Mr. Simons, if I can jump in real quick, you are a committee that was selected and approved by the board. You are subject to open meeting law.
Yep, that's what I thought. So. Okay, yeah, well, like I said, we can have that one agenda item and we could probably kick that out towards the end of April. That works for everyone. I'll email people and it should not be long. It should probably be a 10 to 15 to 20-minute meeting. So that works for everybody. Okay. Item 13, public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that the said person please complete a green public comment card submitted to the committee chair prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of the particular group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Ms. Wonder, has anyone shown up in the office for public comment?
No, and I also have no emails.
Okay, and I have no emails in my inbox as well. Anybody else have any public comment? Okay, I want to tell everyone I appreciate your time today. We did keep it under an hour. I know you're all busy. I will be in touch. Mark will email everything out. I'll be in touch with you on the next meeting where we have the one agenda item. And if there's no other further